Hello, this is your host, Wendy, with Experiments in Poetry, and this is the Tool edition. Now, the band Tool has been together for quite a long time. So, Tool has been together since, the late 80s, early 90s. However, I have never listened to Tool before. Now, I've heard of the band Tool. And I heard that they were, excellent musicians, but I never really got into listening to them. A listener of mine had requested that I do an analysis or a review of a Tool song. But they didn't specify which Tool song they wanted me to choose. So I just went onto YouTube and went to the Tool channel and just randomly selected a few songs. What I listened to were Pneuma, Parabol, Parabola, Sober, Lateralis, and Anima. I actually really liked every song that I listened to, so it all came down to a personal choice. And I got it down to two songs, and I really couldn't decide, so I wound up flipping a coin, and I landed on the song Parabola and decided to pair it with Parabol, and do an in-depth lyrical review on the Parabol Parabola song. The lead singer is Maynard James Keenan. The guitarist is Adam Jones. On drums, there's Danny Carey, and playing the bass guitar is Justin Chancellor. The band is known for having a quite loyal following that has been growing ever steadily over the past 30 years. And I'm actually really glad that someone requested this band and not a particular song, because I got the opportunity to randomly choose several songs and come to the conclusion that yes, I too am a Tool fan. The songs Parabol and Parabola were released in 2001 on the Lateralis album. And before I even say a word about what I felt the meaning or what the song meant to me was, I would like to direct your attention to the lyric video that I made. I like to keep my personal comments about the video experience of listening to the music yourself and seeing the lyrics, so that you can form your own uninterrupted, unabridged opinion of the song. And then pop on back over here. Always, art is subjective. I am not the song whisperer. I'm always giving this editorial through my unique perspective as an individual, which is someone who likes to write poetry, is a published author, and also has the caveat of being a forensic scientist, which means I'm very detail oriented and analytical by nature. And I think that offers my own unique perspective. The music composition is really, really great. I enjoyed it very much. It was very, relaxing in the beginning and meditative, and then build up in energy, and was full on high energy for like a good 6 minutes, and then had a nice slow down at the end. It left you feeling in a good feeling, and I liked it. And I think it's important to say, especially for a band like Tool, whose music part is so well constructed and complex, that I'm not by any means saying that the lyrics are more important. The lyrics are additive into the experience, and sometimes when you listen to songs, the frequencies and of the instruments and the rhythm and beat kind of capture your attention, and often people don't even know what the lyrics of the song are. So therefore, I kind of like to do these little stints upon either something I found interesting or something a viewer requested, so that we can really appreciate that part of the song that's often kind of overlooked or underappreciated, and bring it into the light and give it more appreciation. But by no means am I saying, oh, the lyrics make the song. Also put in the description below the link to the video that Tool released to accompany Parabola, as well as my lyric video that has just the words on the screen. I did that because the artwork or the artistry of the video was quite striking and amazing. And I saw that when I listened to the song for the first time. So I didn't want, once I saw it, you can't unsee it, and it's quite striking, and it might have affected my original interpretation of the song when you're seeing these imageries, because that is also another sensory that I was taking in when I conducted the review of the song. So I think I will go over Parabol just with the lyrics, and then what I will do, since the imagery kind of went into my interpretation, is I take some stills from the video, and when I cover the parabola part, I will work in some of the images from the video and how I thought that brought out what the song was trying to bring forward. So here we go. The song Parabol. So familiar and overwhelmingly warm, this form I hold now. Embracing you, this reality here, this form I hold now. So wide-eyed and hopeful. Wide-eyed and hopefully wild. So in this part of the song, when he is singing and the music that accompanies it, it reminds me of a prayer, like is kind of fluctuating up and down in the tone of it. And it's kind of like a call to just maybe like at the beginning of like a meditation, when you're just kind of acknowledging your body and your place in the universe, in your body, and just appreciating the breaths that you are taking in and out, and the posture that your body is in, and acknowledging, you go one by one during a meditation, and maybe you just go one by one and release the stress in your neck, and then, release the stress in your shoulders, and work your way down and kind of acknowledging every part that you have. Kind of reminds and looking towards, the moment that you're in now, and feeling very positive about your outlook at this very, very moment that you're in. The next lines are: we barely remember what came before this precious moment, choosing to be here right now. Hold on, stay inside, this body holding me, reminding me that I'm not alone. In this body makes me feel eternal. All this pain is an illusion. So what's happening right here is pretty skilled writing. And what I mean is, in this verse that I just read, I feel like I can have, a whole college level course on Eastern philosophical religions. And the thing that I love so much about songs or poetry is that you don't have to have a 450-page book and 3 volumes of that to get someone to understand a concept. That if you are skilled enough, you can literally get it down to 6 or 7 lines in a song, and therefore it becomes very consumable, relatable, and understood. So on a surface level, if you just hear the words, it's just saying, you can interpret it as just saying, hey, things aren't that big of a deal. You barely won't remember anything that's happened yesterday or 2 years ago or whatever, and just, choose to forget about what happened in the past and just focus on the here and now and hold on to this current moment instead of thinking about the past. And hear these words along with seeing the visuals in the video and the overall spirituality of the music right now, and the timbre of his voice at that moment. I really believe that it's talking in a spiritual sense. So in the and I'm going to talk about and I'll probably focus more, and I think it can relate. You can form it. Again, what I'm saying is about your perception and your own beliefs. You probably can form it to many religions, but the visuals that are accompanying it are more reminding me of Eastern type of religions, in particular, most likely Hinduism or sects related to that. So when I hear we barely remember what came before this precious moment, I don't think he's talking about an incident that happened a year ago and still ruminating on it. I think what he's really referring to is our past lives, and that, we reincarnate, and over and over and over again. And each time we come back, if everything goes right, we learn and grow. And then when we are reborn, just like a baby has to learn how to walk and crawl and talk all over again and how to behave in society, when we are reborn, we kind of lose a lot of what we learned, and we need to relearn everything again. Not only that, and this is pretty much unlike the Western religions, where I think most mainline sects of Western religions do not really believe in reincarnation. It's like, this is your one life and your one shot to get it right. And not only that, on top of it all, is that you're here as a punishment in the Western religions. You were in the perfect Garden of Eden in a state of bliss, and you disobeyed God, and you'll come here and you're feeling pain and you're feeling suffering, and that's what you get for disobeying God. And the pain and the suffering that you have is kind of like your atonement for your sins when you were in a realm with God. And that the pain and suffering also is a symbol of being in separation from God. So in the Western religions, you are separated from God as a punishment. And your job here is to get back into the good graces of God. And if you are good and dutiful in your life, then you will be let back in and to experience oneness with God. However, in the Eastern traditions, being on earth is not a punishment. Although both religions are saying that you're at both Eastern and Western philosophies do believe that you are at a separation between, let's just call it the divine or the source. And each religion has a different name for what the divine source is. But in the Eastern religions, that is just an illusion. So when you are reborn, your purpose is to unself yourself. Your purpose is to learn what your true nature is. And that is the task in this world, this realm that we are living in, is to release the idea of the self and to awaken from the ignorance of the idea that you have to somehow improve, or you somehow have to obtain a certain job, or you have to be a certain amount of pious, or you have to be a certain amount of beautiful in order to be happy. That you are not actually separated from other individuals or from the divine source, that we are all one, and that the purpose is to come to that awareness in your conscious mind, and to know that you really don't have any identity or form, and that things like your body or music or even the lyrics that I'm talking about today are simply just a vehicle or a tool, if you will, to function in this medium that we are in. He keeps repeating phrases like familiar, one, form, embracing, stay inside, body, me, and he's even repeating the phrase body and me several times. One body, me, form. One body, me, form. So this task is not an easy task to obtain. And the body has needs of its own. So the idea is thinking that you have a self is what causes all the pain and suffering in your life. Because when you focus on the self, then you're focusing on the desires and needs of the body, and that's what leads to pain in your life. So if you're thinking, well, I gotta have that job I want, like my whole life depends on just obtaining admission to this university, or just by attaining a job that makes at least this much money, or obtaining that lover that I want, or by having a kid, whatever it is that you as an individual are obsessing over that you have to have. And it also could be like, once you get that, are you happy? Maybe then there comes immediately something else you want. And it's really hard in the modern world because we live, especially in the USA, we live in a consumer society where even if you have the best device that there is, or the best home, well, in 5 years there's something even better along, and there's always more you can have, or something better you can have, and it's this unending cycle of desire that can never be fully quenched. And so I believe that this is all referring to, this can all be a reference to the title of the song Parabol, Parabola, which a parabola is a U-shaped kind of curve, and that it follows a particular mathematic algorithm, and one can look at it kind of like the trajectory of a projectile, if you will. Where, if you shoot something up in the air, that'll eventually come down in this kind of typical curve shaped fashion that's like a U. And that's often how it's described. But I feel like if we look at it more in this context as like a vessel, if you flip it around, you could see that it's a U-shaped thing, and maybe you can put something inside and it would hold it. Not only that, the parabola kind of reminds me of the lens shape of an eye. And you'll see it when I start getting up in the video imagery. There's something with eyes that keeps repeating itself. And the parabola it allows you to focus. It has a focal point and it has an apex. And if you can imagine how the lens of your eye can bend and fold light. So what you're seeing around you is really just molecules bouncing off of each other. And really, what does the bed really look like? What does your face really look like? What does anything really look like? It's just a perception that the parabola that is your eye lens is focusing that information that you are perceiving in, and you get an image in your mind of what that object is. But just as I was sure that you have all seen, so you can even do this if you're just reading words. I know there was some videos I was watching, and they would have like people be like, random people on the street, read these sentences, and the person would read the sentence, and they added words in left and right, like all the time. Or words were inverted into a way that an English sentence wouldn't be made. And yet when the speaker saw it, their mind just automatically put it in the right order. And then when the scientist who was conducting the service said, "Can you read that again? Can you read that again? Can you look at that again?" And then after like the third time they looked at it, they're like, "Oh my God, there were actually 3 thes in a row, but I only said 1 the." Or the noun was at the end of the sentence, but I automatically put it in the right place. Oh my God, like how did I just automatically do that? And it's because it's all just perceiving. And so it's all just how you perceive something. So to go back to what I was saying, with the Eastern and the Western religious philosophies is that in the Eastern philosophy, to be here isn't a punishment. And that could be why he's saying, I'm choosing to be here right now, and this is a precious moment. I'm going to describe it using a water metaphor. And I kind of touched on this topic in my poem Home and in the Home video. I said it was a water astrological sign inspired poem. But water has great meaning because our bodies are made mostly of water. And the other elements are all elements that exist here on Earth, and it's about how they all interact together. It doesn't necessarily have to be astrological motivated. Actually, I even said in the video, I think these concepts are much, much more ancient, primal, even within the human consciousness. So I don't know, maybe you can get more information if you look there, but I'll use the context that I was using in that video, which is imagine you are one droplet of water, right? That's your parabola. That parabola is holding the essence that is you, just like the one water molecule is you. You as one water molecule in these Eastern religions are not born realizing that you have this connection, these bonds to other water molecules. But water does have that property of having these non-covalent bonds and attractions to each other. And that's why like insects and stuff can like literally walk on water. And because there is this, it's each molecule separate, but yet it's one body. So much so that a small animal can walk on top of it. But not only that, you might see, to take it further, is the water that's trapped in the cloud still a part of the ocean? How about the water underneath when you look at it at a body level, the water underneath in an aquifer? Is that still part of the ocean? Or a droplet as it's falling from the sky, or dew on the grass in the morning? Whichever way, even the water that makes up most of your body, is that not all part of the ocean? Because if you think about it, the water in your body evaporates through, comes out as sweat or urine or spit or whatever body fluid you have, and it comes out and it gets gets evaporated. Let's say you're sweating into the sky and comes down as rain, gets purified into either the raindrops into the ocean or the raindrops on the ground and goes down and gets purified into those aquifers. So this is kind of how they view things. And the parabola, I think, was chosen because it does remind you of a vessel that's capable of holding something. But not only that, it has the ability to have a focal point and to focus light or sound or even a liquid when it's in it. It can bring it down to an apex point and bring it to a focal point, depending on if it's a light or liquid or sound. But not only that, all parabolas have similar features and could fit and enter within each other, which is kind of like how all living things are made of the same essence, and we are all really basically the same. So now I'm going to talk about some images from the video that I was seeing. The frame that I'm giving it is the frame to the Tool video link for Parabol Parabola. And one thing I will notice when I watched this video is that when you look at the frames, it kind of looks like there's some sort of in the beginning of the video that there's some sort of lens that you're looking through. You so the it looks like you're kind of looking through a screen. You're looking at a screen with these two kind of blocks on the side, and you can see kind of like it looks like a window, if you will. You're looking out a window or at a screen, and in this panel at 54 seconds into it, before it comes into 54 seconds, I almost like, I think I'm looking at like a skeleton of a person, but it keeps zooming out and out and out. And so at 54 seconds, you kind of see these individual molecules going back to like my water metaphor. And then as you back up further at a minute and 4 seconds, you can see now those are starting to cluster together, and you kind of have like when you're zoomed out like this, they kind of clump together, and you have this rough vision of maybe like a table and a floor, and like what might be considered the air part of it. But it's all going back into what I was saying before about with the water molecule. And they're showing you here with some sort of molecule that when they were zoomed up real close kind of looked like a human skeleton to me. And so as they're zooming out and out, now you're kind of getting the visualization of a room. And this is all playing during the Parabol part of it. At 2 minutes and 4 seconds, I show a screen of these humanoid creatures. And I think it's really interesting because even when now that you have this table, so now it's like you're zoomed out even more, and now you can see characters are still looking through this view screen, but it's still kind of out of focus. And again, your parable, your islands, that's how I'm viewing it, is trying to focus in and kind of understand what's going on. It's learning, it's growing, it's viewing these things. They kind of look like people without faces or weird faces, and then they go through, and he has this little box, and he pulls out a tool, and with that tool he gets down to the bottom of things, and he slices and dices a piece of fruit open, and there you can see some sacred geometry. I took a still at 3 minutes and 12 seconds, and when you cut into the fruit you see some seven-pointed star. Kind of also reminds me of a lotus flower, and lotus flowers can represent different chakras in the body. And then again at 4 minutes and 8 seconds, now you're really getting into the song Parabola, and instead of this slow kind of prayer meditation-y type of instrumentation, now you're getting into a more high, the music really starts to pick up, and as far as the loudness of the music and the frequency of the notes, it's a much faster rhythm, it's a much harder sound as far as with the the type of music. So the 7-pointed star is interesting. I know that I thought I saw somewhere that, like the tool emblem I have over here on the side, that maybe they were using that as part of their symbology. You can comment below if you want to talk about that. I thought I saw that somewhere, but I really didn't take note of it. But just in general, seven has always been considered a number of fortune and luck. And, I said the top image kind of reminded me of like a lotus flower of a chakra or something like that. And there are also seven chakras. In the Jewish traditions and the Kabbalistic forms of it, the 7 point stars represents as a symbol of love and kindness. And in Christianity, it took God 7 days to create the earth and or the universe, and it's considered a symbol of protection and to ward off evil. And seven repeats itself multiple times throughout various religions. In Christianity, there's seven sins, seven virtues, seven gifts from God. There in Buddhism, there's seven steps of rising or ascending to become one with the universe. And in Hinduism, there are seven levels of heaven, and there are seven levels of hell. So here you see the symbolism of a 7 point star at the point where it's transitioning from Parabol to Parabola, and the energy is changing in the song. He starts off in verse 1. We barely remember who or what came before this precious moment, this holy reality, this holy experience, choosing to be here in this body. And then it goes into the chorus. This body holding me, be my reminder here that I am not alone in this body holding me, being eternal. All this pain is an illusion. So again, the words are almost identical to Parabol, except the energy and the vibe has changed. Then he says, alive in this body, reality in this holy experience, choosing to be here in this body holding me, be my reminder here that I am not alone. And he repeats the chorus. And then in the bridge, twirling round with this familiar parable, spinning, weaving round each new experience, recognize this is a holy gift and celebrate this chance to be alive and breathing, a chance to be alive and breathing. Okay, so the next images in the video are that I selected to kind of hone in on the meaning of these lyrics. The next images I chose are of two humanoid-like characters that make an appearance in the parabola portion of the video. One is humanoid except for the fact that he has kind of like spikes instead of hair, and he has what reminds me of like antennas coming out his eyes. And then another character is this tiny figure, and that appears, and it's kind of like a human, but has, kind of looks like it's wearing a mask, and it has really long limbs. And he's, they're buddies together, and the guy with the antenna coming out of his eyes, it looks like he's curious about the environment around him, and he goes and touches this kind of floating ball. And when he touches it, it starts to, multiply, and he's fascinated by that. But then another window appears. And so it's a fascinating scene. I chose to show it at frame 643. And now it's kind of like he's looking at a forest through a window. And so you have a window within a window, all showing your frame of perception. And he's, watching this other thing going on out in the forest. But as he's doing that, in the background, this ball that he touched is growing out of control, and his little buddy is trying to warn him, and trying to get his attention about it. And he doesn't listen. He's so fascinated and distracted about what's going on in the window And next thing you know, that ball thing hits his friend, the little guy, and kills him. And then the guy starts to scream at this creation he made, and is seems to be really upset over the death of his friend, and he's examining it. And they show in frame 738, he's kind of holding the poor creature's hand, and the molecule didn't split him in half. The guy split him in half, trying to understand what's going on. Why did this all happen? Try, um, and I think that's just like a metaphor for everything that happens in one's life, right? I mean, um, really apply it to your own circumstances, right? And you're examining it, and you're examining it, and you're examining it. And then, but I think this triggered something within him, and he goes and he um, enters that forest that's out there that he was originally looking at. And the molecule that he created follows him. And once he's in the forest and he's examining the things, it turns into a flame. And then these flames turn into these two eyes, again, where lenses can be parables, and or take on a parabola form, sorry. And they enter his body, one in each foot, through his feet, and travel up his body. In 920, I captured it, and they kind of form like what you may consider an alpha helix, which is the form of the DNA, and they're forming that around his spine. And in Hinduism, the chakras of the body, there's 7 of them, and they go up through the bottom of the spine to the eyes that are entering his bottom through his feet. Also can be explained in many ways. Some of them just consider it the energy that's coming from the universe. In Hinduism, they could represent, the gods, Shiva and Shakti, and other people just describe it as the divine masculine energies, which could be represented by the blue eye, and the divine feminine energies, which are represented by the pink eye, entering through the bottom of his feet, where they come up, activate all of his energy, and all of his chakras. And then finally, at 922, you see them starting to come together to form his third eye. And then once he forms his third eye, then he can activate his crown chakra, and then you see he has a crown of multiple eyes. Also in the background, in this vision, once he starts to see, once the eyes have entered the bottom of his foot, it seems like he's surrounded by other eyes looking at him. And I would say that's, other people, or what could be perceived as people, or entities, or living creatures. And then once he has obtained activation of his crown chakra, you can now see that all of these eyes are actually part of him. And that what you see back here is now just white lines, which represents like energies, and but that we're all part of one energy. And you see that his energy is just shooting out of his body and then interacting with the energy fields of the eyes, or the entities that were in the back of him. But really, all of these things are all connected by one. Chakra is located at the top of the head, and the colors that traditionally represent this are violet and white, which is why when I did the tool video, I put the colors of the crown chakra on here, which is symbolizing enlightenment or illumination, knowing and connection to spirit and the universe, which I feel is what the song is talking about. The song concludes with the word, "This body holding me reminds me of my own mortality. Embrace this moment. Remember, we are eternal, and all this pain is an illusion." If you accept that, then I feel like you can handle it much better. And I think that's the choosing. You're choosing your perception of a given situation. And also, I feel there are some religious sects that do believe that you did actually choose to come down as a person. That it's just so in the Hinduism, it's kind of like a natural cycle of destruction and creation that just occurs, and it just is. But that doesn't mean that in every thought or action you make, you're not choosing what that thought and action is. But that moment to be in the body is a special moment because you're not always in the body, and this is your time, and it's a precious moment if you are eternal and live forever, but you live in different forms, or in different states, if you will. That, wow, to be human, this it's just a small blip. Let's enjoy this experience. Why be sad about getting into, let's go back to one of my examples about I didn't get into that university. Let's just say I don't have to necessarily attend a university. My goal here on earth is to learn and have the experience of learning. And whether or not I get into Harvard or whether or not I get into the community college of Ocean County, it doesn't matter. I'm still learning. Or maybe you can't go to college right now because X, Y, and Z reason, but you know what? You're still getting a job, and you're learning, right? You're learning how to accept rejection because you didn't go in. You're learning how to function as an adult because you're getting a job and you're earning money, and you're just learning the process of life. And so when I hear the words twirling round this familiar parable, and I call so if the parable, say we are just energy, and the parable is just a tool that can focus the energy into a consciousness. You imagine that the energy is beaming off the walls, it's twirling round and round, and it's focusing to a focal point where it's perceiving a consciousness, and that you're just to enjoy that experience of that perception. You're just to be. And that just the fact to be is a gift in itself. And it should be celebrated and appreciated. And I love that he ends the song with, "All this pain is just an illusion." Because if we can live our lives with that example in mind, we'd all be much happier individuals. It concludes my analysis of Tool's Parabol, Parabola. I really enjoyed this opportunity so thank you so much for the suggestion to look into Tool and to do a Tool song. But I by no means went through their whole library. So if you have another Tool song you would like me to talk about, or if you have another band in general that you think would be a good experience, just let me know in the comments below. I also am interested in your written word. I'd like this to be an open channel. I have videos on my poetry and on the poetry of others that I appreciate. You do not have to, you can just submit your work to me at windy@experimentsandpoetry.com, and maybe we can get together and discuss your ideas and your work. Thank you for listening.